Recording in progress.
Right, good evening, everybody in the room and online. Welcome to the Wednesday, February 18th meeting of the Trinidad Commission. We will begin with a roll call.
Mr. Slate.
I'm here.
Mr. Cole.
Present.
Mr. Hickman.
Here.
Mr. R.F. Johnson.
Here.
Mr. R.S. Johnson.
Here. All right, there are no minutes for this meeting, so we'll go past that item. Next, approval of the agenda. Any changes any commissioner want to make to the one item on the agenda? Would you like to consider that order?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second. All right, all those in favor? Aye. All right, passed unanimously.
That's efficiency.
There are no members of the public present in person or none appear to be virtually, so I'm going to guess there are no items from the floor unless commissioners would like to speak from the floor instead of from the.
You're about to have a light on.
I think some of them don't have lights, right, Anton, the microphones?
It should still be working.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so no items from the floor, then now we shall move on to the one only agenda item tonight. Trevor.
Thank you. So just to start off the year and thinking about the council is going to be discussing the budget for the next fiscal year. I wanted to provide an update on our projects and priorities from last year, as well as to kind of give you a heads up on some upcoming projects, and it's an opportunity for you to comment on what your priorities are, what you would like to do this year, and communicate that back to the city council and staff.
Do we have a date for a buying?
I think you guys last time said you didn't feel that.
We talked about that briefly at the end. I think it was after you had left us. We just
Last time you did?
Yeah, loosely talked about it. We can talk about it again now. But yeah, the thought was that I shared it firstly. I've never thought those meetings accomplished terribly much other than getting everybody in the same room as far as moving the needle on anything. The STR committee disbanded. They're not present anymore. We certainly can do one. We talked about maybe an approach where go to the council meeting and I can just issue kind of a report along with Trevor to priorities, but I mean, whatever we want to do as a group. That's just kind of my opinion on it.
I've only been to one, and it seemed a little bit pointless. They didn't really ask any questions.
I think it's good for certain applications, but maybe unless there's something specific that you guys want to discuss, then.
I mean, I feel like the last time it's like the city council is just having a meeting and we're just there. There weren't sort of like what Trevor suggested. Wasn't a lot on the agenda for us to like discuss other than us giving an update on where we're at, I guess.
You've been through many of them, so it's been through a few of them.
Well, obviously some are more effective. Some of the meetings have been more effective.
Yeah.
And I guess my feeling is I like to hold the fire to the feet of the council as much as. What I mean by that is, I mean, we have specific things that we have to do, and our job is to, primary job right now is to get this update plan to a point where it's now time for the city council to move on it. And I always feel that that is an opportunity for us to say, hey, you guys got to get to work, because there are things that they can be reviewing and they haven't. And they kind of just, I don't know what they're waiting for, other than the fact that they're busy. I recognize that. They have a lot of nights when the agenda is overwhelming. There's no question about that. But they got to be looking at this stuff. And there are 3 new council members. Charles, and Kate and Bryce. And they're, I don't even think they've seen anything on the general plan. Well, I know I've been a little bit here.
For sure.
But to me, there should be, yeah, I feel, there should be an agenda item on every council agenda saying, this is where we are, this is what you should be reviewing, and put some milestones down for them to start looking at this stuff. Am I right in the sense that there are things that they can look at?
Yes, but it is a little bit more complicated than that. I think, they have reviewed most of the elements that the planning commission has approved at some point. And, we kind of, we finish an element, city council reviews it, don't always get a lot of input because it looks good. And then we set it aside because the coastal commission has always said, we'll only review everything all at once. And now we're at a point where I think we can move forward more piecemeal. And so I think that's what we have to do. And so I think, a lot of the elements that we've reviewed and kind of approved before, we're going to have to take another look at. I think right now it's, it's the ADU ordinance, which needs to go through another round of review to the coastal commission. The safety element, which will be, I'm working with coastal commission on sort of finalizing that, and I'll come back to you, and then working on some more regulations. So we were working on the noise element. It seems like that should be pretty quick for us to finish up, and that can go to the city council because still an element.
Does the council know that we can do these things kind of piecemeal now, or are they aware of that?
I don't know. I think that's kind of.
I like the idea of Richard taking tab, but.
Well, I mean, we did at one point have a planning commission rep who would go to council meetings and kind of give an update as items from the floor. There was also a long period of time where there was a council member coming to planning commission meetings. They haven't, they stopped.
I've vented. I'm fine if we want to just do a report, you and Aaron, if you want to do a report, that's perfectly okay. I guess I just am concerned, I look at the length of time that this has taken and the length of time that is still ahead of us. And by the time we get to the point of having it approved, we'll have to start all over again because all the rules have changed, all the regulations will have changed. So, a project that has run essentially the better part of 10 years, if not longer, with this picture, right? So, and I know it's not, there are many factors to it. I know that, but lots of players and lots of organizations, but it'd be nice to see some motivation on the part of the council to participate a little bit more.
So I didn't hear you say even one particular item where they have a document that's ready for their review. It's completely ready. It's gone through our processes. Hopefully.
Well,
And we're finished with, because we're not
okay, so the land use element, conservation, open space, and circulation elements have all been recommended for approval in the past by the planning commission and sent to review by the city council. They didn't adopt it though. They reviewed it and maybe provided a little bit of input. But they didn't adopt it because we're waiting for the whole thing to be ready in a package. And now I think we can go more step by step, but we still are going to have to go back. I mean, some of those elements now are probably 5 years old. So we're gonna have to go back to it.
Can we then identify what those elements are that we can quickly refresh on and then send to them? And
Well, I
say,
think
you know, hey, or at least identify those and we can come to them and say, look, here's what's coming to your plate. Our expectations and needs are that you do these things by this point, whatever your process is, so that we can then submit them and be done with them. You know, you asked us, and because they continually do ask us, when are you going to be done with the general plan? I mean, that's at every meeting, the few that I've been to, the 3 or 4 of the joint meetings, that's their annual question. You know, every year we explain to them or re-explain to them the process and the quagmire, and you know, now that we have this different approach, or do we just
Yeah.
do it again right now and say, look, here they are again, guys. These are ready to
We
act.
can certainly give them all of them to review. But I think we, like, now I think instead of doing like the entire general plan, now we need to do like general plan with the implementing regulations. So those kind of go as a package instead. And so it'll be, so we're switching gears a little bit and focus on safety element, which no one's ever, that one we haven't updated in recent years. That'll probably be the first one that we get.
I would like to request that you, with this in mind, pick one, something that can wrap up, that the council can know, you can handle this independently of the others. That's a new process. Coastal. And then we would make that request to them officially. Please review this and approve or comment.
Yeah, well, I think we're really close on the safety element.
But safety element is an important one, for
Yeah.
sure. That would be a great one to, I mean, some of them, I think they sort of discount the basic level of importance. You know, what are they gonna do with the ADU, for example? The state is.
Yeah.
What it's gonna be in it, what are they?
Yeah, EDU ordinance is kind of, is going to be, is what it is kind of thing.
Something that we would expect them to take a close look at and go, yeah, you got it right, or you're missing some points.
But I think, I think the city council does tend to rely on the planning commission for that expertise. And so they probably feel, especially when it's been vetted through the coastal commission as well, they probably don't want to mess with it too much. But I think one of the important components of getting it to the city council is public input, because you're not getting public input here.
Folk opportunity.
Yeah, but you always get a bigger crowd at a city council.
Yeah, well, sure.
Unless they were appointed.
Yeah,
Sure.
You gave, speaking of council, you gave this same report to them in the previous meeting?
I have not given this to them yet. But I plan on it after you guys talk.
Back to Richard's original query, like I view those meetings as being rewarding if we are ready for them to review something, or if we're trying to extract information from them, right? We had one recently with the ADU and US bars, are they allowed this versus that, right? So I feel like we were really trying to gather input or push something on them they're worth having. But if we're not actively engaged in those active processes at the moment, I'm sure that it's, we don't have anything to push upon them or to extract from. The people sitting through.
do you have or can you, the past we've asked for, and I think you've given us kind of a matrix, if you will, of the different elements and where they are. Which ones, now that we have this piecemeal approach that we can do, which ones are indeed ready to have the council act on, and then which ones we still need to wait on? I know that would be helpful for me to have that document that we can just kind of have living and keep updating. We can show it to them like, look, these 6 here that are in green, they're ready, they're yours. It's just 6 of the elements being ready to green, but with green, right? But just having that visual for them, we can give them, like, please, you want us to make progress on the general plan, have the capacity to make progress on the general plan for us to get those things to the point where you can then just send them off and you get done.
But maybe like a hierarchy, the triage of next most important tasks. Some of these like the ordinance, sorry, time sensitive, sorry, ADU.
Yes. What is our pleasure? Does anyone want to try that?
You know, Rachel says that a number of these things I don't know anything about. You're. It looked at.
I mean, I'd love, your support in the room, tag teaming when it comes time to talk to the council, because you have a long respected tenure too. With a lot of these projects. Speak today, I chatted with you folks for better part of a decade now, and we're chatting again. And this time we want to make sure you really hear what we're telling you.
I like the idea of showing them the matrix so they understand and at least where we are in the process. And then I think another thing that would be useful too is to emphasize to them that we do want their input.
Yeah.
That it's not a matter of, here it is, we've approved it, rubber stamp it.
Right.
We really want their input as well as the public's. And so, yeah, and if those two messages get across, that's great. Makes a lot of sense. Sure. And the mechanism on how you want to do that is fine.
Whatever we want to do. On that, I think it was the last one we talked a lot and expressed our support to the council for them getting you additional support, not just simply more hours for Trevor to build because you're already, I'm sure, maxed out on your capacity, but getting you support to be able to move things through from other planners, assistant planners, other folks or contractor services, something else. And did that make it into last year's budget as far as you know? And has it been done? Because I know things make it into the budget and then, again, everybody's got limited capacity to make things happen, so to speak. But
I have no idea where we're at on the budget.
okay. But did we not try and get that in there for the last budget cycle, right?
If I recall that decision, sorry if I call that discussion correctly, but Trevor, you're saying that there's just also like a lack of planners as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we have some new planners. I had someone helping me last year. She took off to have a baby and now she's just starting to come back. But yeah, no, we do have a variety of planners. Part of it is on me and delegating, and then delegating Trinidad stuff is kind of hard. Maybe it's me, maybe, I don't know, but I don't want to throw anyone to the wolves.
There's nothing you can do about having 20 years of experience with a particular thing.
Yeah, and so like, it's more like the application, the permit applications that come in, or like, oh, we need a noise ordinance. That's something, those kind of discrete things are things that I can hand off on someone, but say, oh, hey, finish this general plan element or those kind of things are harder.
If there's, I know you were redoing a lot of the forms, you can say, hey, here's the beginning part.
The form's ready to go.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna mention, I mean, that is something that I was gonna kind of bug Gabe to get to the city council. So we can, and I don't know what it would take to finish getting the online, municipal code finished, updated, but it hasn't, it's, so getting that.
Renumber, yeah.
Cities.
Is that something you could pass off?
That is something, that's something that another firm does, but I think, there's this bottleneck of getting all the ordinances. Yes, staffs.
I mean, could they do a template and even put in placeholders and then pass it back to Gabe to say, plug in your ordinance, here's your numbering. When you have it, it plugs in right there, but here's the framework for you. That way, that piece isn't overwhelming and to a point, I don't know. But anything we can do to help get those forms higher up to lessen your workload or make things more efficient for, to give you more time back?
Where are we on grant funding for the?
We are getting down, so we got an extension through the end of this year. We moved some of the funding around, did an amendment. We're getting low on funding for some things, but we're just gonna keep plugging away.
City has the money,
As I know,
expand the gap,
yeah.
whatever the gap looks like.
And I mean, some of it's on the coastal commission to actually turn around comments and which has been part of the holdup so far, but I think they're working on it. They've turned around comments on the AV ordinance, they've turned around comments on the safety elements. I think they're trying to make that a little bit better.
You put it in here, just the OWTS enforcement. And I'm just curious, is there anything from us that we can do to make that happen? Because I know it is frustrating for those of us that are compliant. I know Jennifer, when she was managing it, struggled to get that enforcement piece for the people that either were just being obstinate and not completing their things, even though they had the means and the wherewithal to do it. Then there's those that might have, an economic barrier. But it doesn't feel great to the majority of residents that are compliant. It's where's the incentive? But I could just choose not to, so I don't know if there's really anything from our perspective we can do to push that issue with the council or with staff, to support you guys. Because I know, Anton, you're stepping into that role and getting up to speed.
It's, enforcement is always difficult, and OWTS is not the only enforcement issue. And it's always been a frustration for me that there's really kind of a lack of follow through. And that just hasn't necessarily been a priority. I can write letters. At some point we have to get an attorney.
Right. And I guess what's the holdup from your perspective on the city doing that?
I think right now it's probably, I need to sit down with Anton and figure out, because I think there were some people who have gotten all their letters, and so we would move potentially into nuisance statement. And then there are a few people who maybe haven't gotten all whatever, like final notice or whatever. So we kind of need to sit down and do that. There's been some staff communication with some of those residents, and like, oh yeah, I'll get that. I don't know what's going to be. Well, next time they want something. That's a good, okay, so we need to connect. I think we need to connect business. There needs to be a questionnaire on business license applications and building permit applications. I talked to Gabe a little bit about that with these new forms that your septic's in play.
Or you don't get a business license?
Yeah. Or building permit.
Yes,
Those are not cross-referenced.
I think that's great, but I guess my follow-up question would be, so how would we enforce them not being allowed to operate their business? Because it's great to put this into policy, great to put a program down, if there's no belief that there's going to be a consequence for this behavior, what the hell's the point of once again saying, hey, it's a third letter, we're going to go to a nuisance abatement, and then that nuisance abatement never shows up. It's like, we keep crying wolf.
Well, and I think with building permits, it's pretty straightforward. You just
Sure.
don't get your building.
Yeah.
The business licenses, that is much tougher. And how far does the city want to go in terms of, potentially business? STR licenses, there's going to be a lottery coming up, and we kind of went through that and we eliminated some.
I thought it happened, right?
Oh, okay, it already happened. So we eliminated some people off that list because they didn't have their septic. So. But I think we should also, so I talked to Gabe, you can't get on that list until you have your septic taken care of. Like, they shouldn't have been able to get on the list in the first place.
Is that in policy? Is that in the ordinance? I'm just curious how those,
I think that can be.
just administratively.
The ordinance allows administrative
Administratively, okay.
policies, or, I don't see why you couldn't do that, because it is a requirement to have a license that you have your septic in compliance. So why would you get on a list in a lottery if you don't have your septic?
That's okay.
So I was just getting back to the issue of how much time you're able to spend and any extra support. I was just looking at the budget for, now the only thing we have is through November 30th. We don't have end of year, but the city's on June to July 1st. Okay. Oh, you are at basically 47%. So you're pretty much on plan. But would you want to increase your budget for this year or request an increase in budget? Currently, the budget is 90,000. It would seem to me that maybe what would make the requests for additional support stronger is if we had a good rationale for increasing the city planner budget. Say up at $30,000. At least force that discussion. I don't know how this number gets developed, tell you the truth, other than Gabe and somebody sitting there.
The register, and then it's just percent of plan, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is recycled, and then, just some numbers, but,
Curious how we ended last fiscal year, percent of, you see June of
Yeah.
25, that would be an interesting one.
and there's various line items, I think, for planner.
Well, that's the other thing that makes it a little, that makes it a little bit difficult is, and they also break out the building inspector, admin tasks and enforcement as separate cost codes.
And there's a separate OWTS account, there's a separate water fund,
Yeah, but those are all tied to specific projects. And I guess what I'm suggesting is that for planning, pure planning, not supporting those other projects, is that we force a discussion by maybe requesting a higher budget, which is the current budget. I don't know. I mean, problem is then we got to find somebody that really will do it.
yeah, and so much depends on, so much just depends on what comes up. We always put a plan together of what we're gonna work on, and, some
Yeah,
years
right.
there's a lot of applications, some years there's grants. I usually am managing a bunch of grants, and I don't have that. I'm kind of bugging the city to apply for implementation funding for the climate resilience, because we have that nice new plan and they want to give us money, and I don't want to miss that window. But I don't know if the city really has the staff capacity to deal with that, right?
Are there consultants, contract companies that, the city could hire to augment you, that, to do a specific planning function? Like a one-time thing, we try and find somebody that you can sit with and kind of line out, here are the deliverables we're looking for, right? Ask me, you have an hour of my time a week to ask questions or something, and then bring a product back in a certain amount of time. That, I think, just if there's something that just has been sticky that you just haven't been able to to get through even something simple, just to not have it weighing on you, you know?
I mean, but that's the kind of thing that I could hand off to someone else in our. Right.
That's just, you know, if you don't have that resource or that, you know, internally, are there other options out there that we could try and find?
Potentially, but then you have to think about, you have to go through RFP or.
Yes, but again, if it's gonna get the work done, then it's a headache worth having, in my opinion, you know, to get this done, to get through these things. Might be something where just, you know, to try and get through all these elements as an example together, you know, you doing each of them in parallel just is, you know, you're constantly, you know, not making the progress because you're always back at putting out the fires on each one. I don't know.
Well, I do know that HCOG hires consultants, planning consultants all the time. And they're out there. And a lot of.
Well, isn't that what SHN is cities planning consultant?
Yeah.
Because so we'd just be like further stepping out every job. I mean, stuff,
No, absolutely, we'd be doing that.
or she would be sub.
Yeah.
But
So Trevor, would you rather be supervising some other consultant staff or somebody that's in the building with you? Maybe you get creative about figuring out how to delegate something.
Yeah, probably someone in the building, but it would depend on the project.
Well, you mentioned things like putting all that material, I can't even remember the expression you used, but putting it all online, whatever. You know, that sounds like a thing you should break out. Somebody a job to do that. If you would go to the city council and say, got this person, we want to take up 20% of their time, something needs to be done, minimal supervision for you.
Yeah.
You know,
That, I mean, the online thing, I was talking to Anton before the meeting started about also getting like some of the older minutes and stuff like back online. Yeah, that's not, fortunately, I mean, that's something will take someone in this office time, even if it's subbed out to someone. Yeah, I don't know, the logistics of things.
If you were able to find somebody at FHN to tackle a specific task, how likely is it that person at FHN could say, hey, we actually just got a new big project, we need to take that person from you, Trevor, and reallocate them to something else, or kind of once you get your hands on them, are they pretty committed to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, I was giving Leanna a lot of the permits that came in last year. She also helped me put together some of the new regulations that I'm working on, and doing a lot of research, that kind of stuff. There was a project I was hoping to work on, which was the watershed sanitary survey for the water plant. But I had to kind of hand that off to someone else because I didn't have time. That's a nice.
I just lost it, but it looked like, I'm trying to find the end of June, but for the end of May, we were about $25,000 over budget
Last year.
last year. And that doesn't include June. I lost June. You know what happened to it because they did some strange things with the meeting. It's there, but I guess that's the point, is that they just plugged in the same 90,000
Yeah.
for the year before and didn't pay any attention to really what was, going on.
I think that happens a lot, and because nothing is ever what you expect, but the city overall usually ends up in the black. So I guess things even out, and obviously Eli had a different management style from Joe, who has a different management style from Gabe. So that will change. That might change a little bit this year. And, you know, I always put, sometimes you want, like, it also takes time for accounting, I think. You know, when SHN sends an invoice, the different projects get accounted for differently, and I think, you know, the permit, you know, sometimes I think it takes time for the permit projects to catch, like, they come out of the planner budget, but then they get reimbursed. I'm not sure how all that works, but
It depends on how quick you get your billing reviews in.
how quick the city gets theirs into their.
Yeah.
I mean, just getting back to the, you know, general plan update, you know, we've talked about how they need to be, all the elements need to be made internally consistent, right? Is that something you can pass off to somebody in your office and say?
Yeah,
Because that would be a huge leap for us, and then just bring back the internally consistent drafts. And they might see, you know, some efficiencies or opportunities that we don't, and that you don't. That'd be a good project.
yeah, that's a good one.
Oh, this is going to add one other thing. If you're talking about talking to the city, just like any other client, you have a steady workload, but most years your billing rate goes up a little bit too. So if you're putting in the same amount of time, billing rate's going up a little bit. That gives you plenty of justification to go to the city and say, you know, if you're just bringing in the budget from last year, my rate went up 5%. You know, we need to increase the budget by 5%.
Yeah, and actually that's SHN's contract will be up for renewal this year, and our rates, that was 5 years ago, and rates have, and we already offer a discounting rate, rates way up, so yeah, that's gonna be a safe, and I've already warned Gabe, I mean, that's gonna be a safe.
5 years, the same rate.
Wow, that's,
Well, like 3% increases.
oh,
over
built in,
5
okay.
years.
Okay.
So it's, I don't think Trinidad's even getting billed 2/3.
I guess at the end of all of it, what I would like to see us find a pathway is to somehow increase, like, what the full-time equivalents that are being put into Trinidad's plan, right? Like, 'cause, you know, we've got 1 unit of Trevor, right? What we need right now is 1.5 units of planning for the city to get caught up with all these things that are behind. And that's what I haven't really heard a pathway for yet. I don't know if that's a different way to think about it or explain it. I just see us kind of treading water, for lack of, not that we're not making progress, we're not drowning, but we're not, you know, we're just slowly. Or, you know,
Or by the same token, remove half of the Trevor that's currently focused on WTS.
Yes.
Or stuff like that. So not necessarily adding additional, but just reshuffling the existing.
But yeah, I mean, I think the city is, did they put out an announcement for a new grant manager? I think it's ready, they have it ready to go, an announcement for a new position. Right now, it's just, I mean, even if I had an extra person, we don't have this, it's still a bottleneck here at city staff.
are you having conversations at the city staff level to help this new position that sounds like it's being created, right? We're gonna get a new grant manager, and then kind of, they're gonna get I don't know what Angela's new title is gonna be, project manager, I guess. So anyway, to kind of design the work responsibilities of that product, of that person, to specifically eliminate some of the bottlenecks that the planning piece to see. I think it's an important discussion to have, to make sure that.
Last year, the city did an employee, they call it like compensation study. So they looked at the various positions and compensation. So they did kind of categorize and get that kind of figured out.
But did they solicit feedback from you? What is keeping you from being able to do your job that the city has to do for you to be able to be more efficient with your time, to Chris's point? That's maybe something we can help facilitate as well. I don't know. Okay. You had talked, Trevor, in your staff report here, and I mean, we had talked, with the delay in getting some of these things put into place, we're missing the opportunity for projects to be subject to, for example, some of the design review elements. And you had mentioned there might be a pathway for that to make planning commission policies that would, in the interim, govern them. We had that discussion. I would love to see us kind of revisit the lighting standards, and I would like to really learn more about the dark sky. I've been hearing a lot of stuff around that, and light pollution, I think, is a big issue in town. The few streetlights we have still light, for example, I think in a less than responsible manner. It could be better designed.
Only when they're on.
Huh?
Only when they're on.
Only when they're on. You're right. That is solved part of the problem. That I think 3/4 of the 10 in service in town are not currently working. Last I checked, because I walked home from the last meeting. But to that point, what would be the process for us to do that? Because we have projects that have come before us since we did our last review of the design element, and we're going to have more coming up again. We're stuck in this middle ground where we know what we want to require, but we're not yet allowed to require that of our applicant, right?
Well, so I think there's a couple of things. One, I think we have talked about adopting the new design guidelines as policy to help you make the findings that are in the ordinance. So I think we could look at that. And that would address, because you can address lighting and projects that come before you as conditions of approval. But when it comes to existing lighting, you would need an ordinance. So you're talking about a noise ordinance. The county just passed a lighting ordinance, but I think we could also, it could be a standalone ordinance, or if I'm looking at the LCP update. So after some of the housing stuff and the safety element, I'm looking at a new chapter for coastal development permits, and then the next general plan element, I think that we could work on, that would be similarly conservation and open space, and would include lighting regulations. I'll have to get to that in the next year.
In the short term, though, if I heard you right, the project comes before us, we can, as a condition of approval, say we want you to use dark sky practices as an example, right? Current pet issue, right?
Yeah. And, I think getting the new forms implemented would also help with that, because right now there's no real guidance on what you have to submit. Where with the new forms, there's a box with your lighting, your landscape. Some of these things that we don't really have regulations for, but obviously are issues and impact resources.
Will the council have to approve those forms before they go into effect? Can they just be put into effect administratively?
I think they could be put in effect administratively, but I think Gabe sort of just wanted to present them to the city council and kind of get their blessing on it. So they're aware, maybe even just as a consent. I think he was going to do it as a consent item.
Well,
Priority wise?
yeah.
Well, I think we still have to have discussions and continue the discussions on annexation. All this is going to be a moot point if we don't have any money.
Yeah, and the housing element is one that certainly one that. And the city could even, like Blue Lake, we'd be fighting for Blue Lake, but they're gonna, they're doing an RFP for someone to do just their housing. A number of communities will be kind of farming it out like that. Some are gonna try and do it. The housing element is one. Yeah, we could talk about whether the city wants to try and hire another consultant but that standalone project I could give to someone, but housing elements are not, they're not. But I'm, last time HCD went easy on Trinidad and I'm hoping that will continue.
What's the timeline for them to release their final official numbers?
It's, I think HCOG announced today that HCD approved it. So now at least the methodology. And so it's done. I think there's an appeal period and I think the city of Eureka is potentially appealing. But the bottom line number is already determined by HCD, and it's just the allocations of who gets what where is the only thing that's still.
Bottom line number for the county.
We put in your report here that the revised elements are due July 2027.
Yes.
So that's after it's gone through all the various processes. That's when it's supposed to be finalized, right?
So everybody's gearing up.
That subject, I was looking at what you said about the standards, where they break out low income housing to 4 different categories. And I just wonder, where's the data, the income data come from? I mean, is Trinidad supposed to figure that out?
Well, the income data is set like what constitutes low income and extremely low and acutely low and
Yeah,
very low. And
I understand it, that they'll put a number on there,
Yeah.
but then how do you confirm? Who actually goes out there and says, what is your income?
Well, that when you report, it's very difficult. Like they make you either provide a selling price or a rental price, or if it's rent controlled, or if you don't know, like we've had a couple of smaller houses go in Trinidad, and I said, low to moderate, maybe low. They're like, no, if you can't prove it's low, then it's moderate.
So you have to either force the landlord or the renter to.
Well, and we have to show that we have the land base to do it in the first place.
Yeah, I understand that part. That's a whole other issue, but it just seems like the whole process is, it's like, to actually do this, either it takes an awful lot of effort and a lot of cooperation from everybody, or you just make it up.
Yeah, I just don't,
Because they're talking about income, they're not talking about what people pay for rent. They're talking about their overall income.
yes, but it would be like a person, like 30, you're not supposed to pay more than 30% of your income for rent. So it should be 30% of those income levels or whatever.
Those federally set, are they state set, the income levels?
Your state says that.
I think the
Census data.
And they vary throughout the state.
Sure.
So I think there's one income level for.
Yeah, I was trying to pull census data on another thing for the county, for Trinidad, and just this big pocket of non-discrete information. We're all kind of lumped into this big amorphous.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot harder to search the census data.
Yeah.
Of course.
Has there ever been an attempt, either with whatever regulatory agency to have them view RVs as housing, because the reality in Trinidad, and I would argue a lot of places, is they do absolutely provide long-term secure housing for folks. And I don't know if that's ever been lobbied.
I will try and have, I mean, I could try and have another conversation, but I mean, I did have a conversation with HCD staff about that, and they went back and to their legal team or whatever to get an official determination, and it was no.
And which I understand and respect, that's their determination, but what's the basis for their legal team's ruling? Is there some, I would imagine this is not an issue that's unique to Trinidad. In the state of California, let alone in Humboldt County.
I see this.
There could be an association of local governments that could come together and say, hey, look, guys, I understand you don't view that. I understand that the ideal might be more permanent housing for people, you know, traditional structures, but the reality on the ground landscape is this. And so, you know, that particular type of housing is being marginalized in essence.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine some of it might be sort of a safety issue if it's not meant to be permanent residents, but I think so. HCD has offered to help the county jurisdictions kind of coordinate the housing elements and provide technical assistance. And that would be a good question to bring up for them, because it's not just a city issue too.
No, and I think if you were to do a population density, you know, heat map in Trinidad, there's 2 spots that are going to be the most dense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's
Separate question, but just
Yeah.
the landscape as it lays right now, right?
My recollection was that all of the RV stuff went away when the state implemented this new housing ordinance regulations, because housing had to have a permanent foundation. And so that meant that every RV, unless you build cinder blocks under, I guess,
Right.
away.
Right.
So I think
the timelines are not
Yeah.
on it as
But
housing.
you can't regulate, or they're regulated completely separate as a motor vehicle, right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, the
totally.
DMV's got a license plate on it, and they
Yeah.
probably don't want to turn loose.
Well, it might be something
Income either.
to where, you know, laws get put into place and then 5-10 years down the road, you see unintended consequences of the law and why that doesn't fit. And so then maybe it's time to reach out to our, you know, state rep, you know, or assembly district and that kind of stuff and say, hey, here's an issue. Can you help us with this? Because they're the ones that can affect that kind of change.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, because okay, so you're renting out an RV or you're renting out a space. Who do you complain to if it's substandard housing? You know, it's those
Right.
kind of things. I think so. That's safety issue and.
Well, and also too, when you think about it, if RVs were included, you don't really have a good number of the housing or the amount of housing that you have, because that number could change overnight.
Right.
If the RVs move. So I can understand where they would not want to include those.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anecdotally, I will tell you that I don't think the numbers change,
Not here.
you know, and so that's,
Yes.
you know, that's the trouble, right? That we
Well,
see
there
with
is-
all of our stuff.
There is, well, yeah, maybe the number of spots doesn't change, right?
I mean,
But the tenants of the individuals.
personal observations literally across the fence are that
Right.
they're pretty remarkably static.
Sure.
But,
Yeah,
but,
most of them are.
but if that, I mean, I think it's still up for sale, right?
Yeah, the sign's still there, yeah.
Yeah. So that could in a heartbeat
Sure.
become totally different. I mean, that housing could all go away in a heartbeat.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just this weird space that, you know,
I know.
it's not regulated, which does absolutely raise legitimate safety concerns for the occupants of those places, right? But then there's basically kind of a Wild West, no oversight of it because it's not included in anything. So it's like, we don't know how to regulate it from a state standpoint, so we're just gonna ignore it completely.
Yeah,
I don't know, it's beyond the thing that planning commission.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a fact, so, yeah. Putting your head in the sand doesn't fix it.
I think, you mentioned the water pipeline connection, just kind of moving on to different, I mean, yes, that's on the radar. I don't see anything moving with that.
I'll be on the March city council,
Oh, is it? Okay. The report back of their initial feasibility study or?
something, we're working on it.
Okay.
I think we're too late for that, really. I think we need to move, or I think staff's gonna try and put together that information, and we have some new information to present, and decide to jump in, or
I had a question about, um, talk about the resiliency project implementation. You mentioned the grant application. You also said that because many of the projects pending are affected by the Sure I study area. I mean, what is an example of a project that could be paid for by grant funding or resiliency to the Sure I study area?
a lot of the projects were focused on sort of that South Bluff and looking at options for stabilizing, looking at retreat options or retaining walls for Edward Street, looking at sort of like an emergency landslide plan, so you have something in place if it does slide out. There was a project for looking at stormwater on Wagner Street and pulling that back in, out into the city stormwater system. So all of those projects would affect the city.
Wagner Street would, that part of their study area?
It's adjacent.
Yeah, okay. So
And the stormwater is going on to the study area now. So trying to pull and, affecting saturation.
yeah, well, if they redirected the drainage, what Sure I have to say about that? All of a sudden the water's not there.
That's why the city's been in litigation for.
Okay. All right, well, you gave me the examples I'm looking for. Because everything you're talking about there is a big project.
Big projects, yes.
And this grant funding for resiliency could literally handle a projects of that size, multi-hundred.
Or pieces of it, like we had there's also the whole sort of the long-term plan for the Axel Lindgren Trail, that was one of them. But I think we had kind of we submitted a previous grant that the state took away, we didn't have that plan done yet, but it was a lot of monitoring and studying of the bluff, because we don't necessarily know exactly where things are moving. I think also, dealing with septic water too. Like, I think there was a project to look at possibly like a community leach field or something, and pulling that off the bluff. But yeah, doing monitoring, water quality sampling. I forget all what we had in that grant application, but yeah, there's millions. I mean, the city could apply for millions of dollars, and OPC, we would be a high priority to get that funded.
It would seem like that needs to go up to the top of the list as far as.
I would think so. Maybe once the city hires a new grant manager, that would be a good conversation to have. Right now, it's of that capability.
So barring a new grant manager, they would look to you to put in this application, is that?
Piece of it, I think GHD also submits applications like that for the city, and I think we really worked together on the last grant application. And I think it was kind of that, part of it was that retreat plan for Edward Street, kind of looking at, okay, what happens as it starts to slide? But, part of it one way and bicycle paths and just kind of that kind of planning.
I would just assume GHD would jump on that right away if they thought they'd have an opportunity to dip into those kind of grants.
In the near term, tackle the areas that aren't as sensitive, at least get some stuff crossed off the list from that resiliency plan, right? We've armored protected what we can, and so we have the low hanging fruit and the more challenging, complex projects for whatever reason are.
Everything there sounded like an engineering study, everything.
A lot of it, yeah.
I didn't hear anything that wasn't.
Well, there was, we were looking at doing some monitoring with like drones and surveying and.
Well, that's an engineering company. Who else does these things? Consultants of one kind, or technical consultants.
Yeah.
Gonna sell drones at Costco,
They have a license to do that, produce that kind of thing for public use.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that would be good to talk. Cause that's one I hate to have the city miss out. But grants are a lot of work for staff too, but they tend to pay for a staff position. But they are a lot of work, and I know, the airtight project has been a real.
most companies like GHD would do that kind of thing as a promotion, like there wouldn't be any bill for it. Since they get a big piece of the action, so they get long-term work. Because they have done individually.
Yeah.
I kind of lost the thread. What are we trying to accomplish?
Priorities.
Yeah, I'm kind of just going through Trevor's different
Okay,
underlined sections here on the report. SDR ordinance, you said, Trevor, that things are pretty stable. That is there. You kind of were asking us if there's anything that we're.
There's a couple of things maybe we've talked about, but there's nothing that really stands out to me that we can't deal with through just administrative regulations of the
Anton,
manager.
as you're sitting in there to put you on the spot, you're hearing folks come in day to day and seeing emails and fielding phone calls. Is there any kind of drumbeat of consistent issues as of late with the SDRs in town? I have not heard anything from.
I wouldn't say so. No SDRs.
But that could be a pretty easy thing for us to formally revisit and then just send right back, right?
I think we're really on target with the timeline. We just have a couple more inspections for these STRs tomorrow, and then I think there's one that's kind of outstanding.
And then you've not heard any complaints from the community, anything new, anything different, anything kind of like the issues that
Complaints for
created the ordinance seem to have been resolved by the ordinance. Right?
yeah, I think so.
That might be an easy thing for us to tee up and, right? Because you said that cycles come and do, right?
Yeah, but I think you guys could just say that,
Is
I
the,
don't know if it even has to be on your agenda.
I was gonna ask, is there something, I can't remember, is there anything in the ordinance that says the frequency with which we have to review it?
I think it said in 2 years after adoption, then as needed afterwards, I think is what it says.
We don't have a defined role then. Now that this ordinance is in place and implemented.
Yeah.
Is it us specifically or the council that would need to review that periodically?
And it's planning, Michelle.
Okay.
What Richard mentioned about annexation. I mean, like. Similar to what he does, it's a critical for the long term for Trinidad, and I don't know when that becomes critical, right? It's our tax base doesn't cover the expenses. So
Yeah.
Is there some way of us moving? We can say we think it's important, but
I mean, I think at this point emphasizing to the city council to budget for that. So there will, with these two water applications, they're going to LAFCO in March. And then they're gonna have to apply to the city for annexation and each pay $5,000, which the city can use towards studies, but it's probably gonna be more than that to decide. You know, if and how much to annex.
so that's just two properties. I mean, we're looking at your picture.
Well, that would help the city look at annexing the whole neighborhood. And, you know, some of that I think some of that would be public outreach and seeing who else might want to connect to city water and why as well.
So who initiates that?
But I think, well, we're gonna have to, as part of the LAFCO approvals and these new water connections, the city's gonna have to at least consider it. How far the city goes down that road will be kind of up to the city council and how much they want to budget it. But really, you know, annexing residential areas has a lot of benefits to the city in terms of, you know, more voters, more people to serve on councils and commissions, more, you know, land use control, various kinds of things. But they don't tend to provide additional tax revenue to the city. To do that, the city would need to annex commercial areas, and to do that, the city needs.
I think the message, though, is that this is a long-term effort, and it's not something that we need to take our eyes off of just because we think it's not going to happen for another 10 years. That this is a progressive thing that has to be looked at on a regular basis, and we need to put in place the planning and the resources to make it happen when that time frame becomes, you know, the last item to do. Otherwise, it's going to be like we've done for the last long time of just saying, yeah, we got to do it, and nothing ever happens. I think it was a great start last year by having the briefing on annexation that kind of alerted everybody to, you know, the complexity of it. But we got to just keep it in front of everybody's minds. Otherwise, it'll just fall through the cracks.
It does seem like that's the job of the planning commission. A lot of these things, it seems like we pick it up sort of after it's already started, but one that potentially have some action that gets attention or starts moving the ball down the road. So, yeah, it's got to be an important issue, and not just slide and slide. I mean, it's easy to say, well, can't do it if you don't have water. But, well,
But there, you know, even if the city decides not to hook up to Humboldt Bay, the city will eventually lose the Rancheria as a customer, and there's that extra water.
And loss of revenue.
yes.
So, you know, the city's thinking about, you know,
But yeah, they are. I think that'll be part of, you know, some of the information we provide in March.
With maybe there is no real focus, but the focus of annexation seems to have shifted from when we first talked about it 2 years ago, which was the Lanford Road neighborhood. Seems to have shifted towards Mill Creek. Maybe it doesn't matter where we're shifting or where our focus is geographically more as it is just, getting all the ducks in a row.
You're right. And I think, we were looking at Langford as sort of a pilot project because it's such a small area. And I know, it's really almost an island essentially. And I know LAFCO would really encourage that area to be annexed. And it makes a lot of sense. It shifted because of the water applications. But I think we should still look at Langford as part of this annexation study that we embarked on.
I guess does that,
Oh, and there's actually a couple of, the city would like to annex north of the cemetery to add to the cemetery, and then there's a parcel north of Saunders parcel that I think would like to annex. So there's a couple of other little individual parcels north on this side of the freeway that we might also look at.
But I'm way behind the curve on it, but they're looking for further north, like, wherever it, storage places.
Yeah, so
And hardware store.
probably not with this round. Again, that's where going more, yes, so the city has a sphere of influence that goes north up Patrick's Point Drive, and then also its water service area goes even further up Patrick's Point Drive. But there's no water line other than for the CAL FIRE. So, but a lot of those are significant water users. So, so the city, but we could potentially go like to the storage, Ocean Grove, a few parcels up, and not all the way. And, Emerald, a couple of one or two of the RV parks have been begging the city to look at annexation because they're having to upgrade their water systems. Again, those RV parks use a lot of water.
The water budget study was done years ago, kind of, the maximum build out. Did you account for the sphere of influence areas as well? So those areas that we're talking about right now are kind of included in our max build out, right? As far as our water?
But we don't have the water to serve we don't have the water to serve that entire area all the way up to CAL FIRE.
Okay. Not to CAL FIRE, no, okay. And the Coastal Commission, as I recall, very much wants us to serve that area first, from a services standpoint.
So under Coastal Act, because a lot of those are zoned, coastal recreation or something, coastal commercials, it's a coastal designation that would be a priority use by the Coastal Act. So yes, the Coastal Commission would rather have us provide water there than to housing. HCD would rather have us provide water to housing. And no income housing, so RV parks have.
Trevor, I know you briefed us on some of the implications and processes for annexation, but to what extent are those conversations happening at or among the council as well?
I don't think they've discussed it much, not since the briefing from last time.
So you say things like the city is looking at these parcels, those decisions are mostly happening in staff.
Oh, I would say, yeah, staff. Yeah.
Just sort of curious, generally speaking, how the council feels about annexation and how the city do, like the residents of the city feel about annexation. Almost guaranteed to happen, or that it needs to happen, but I don't know that it's easy to bring people on board with it.
And that's why I think, that's why I've been hesitant to just go start, sending out notices to people, because we do need to get a feel for how people feel about it, but I think their initial reaction at least in the past has been no. So I think we really need to put together some educational materials in terms of, what are the benefits and drawbacks so that people. Because unfortunately, most people already have water, so what's their incentive to?
Yeah, or the people who are on city water.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah,
yeah. Do most people have city water out on Mill Creek? Or just,
Mill Creek and, most people have, few vacant parcels. Two.
Just kind of threw together a list, maybe not in any particular order of our discussion tonight so far for priorities. And again, not in any particular, I've got, support for Trevor, specifically reducing, limiting bottlenecks at the city staff level, possibly leveraging that new position to do that, increasing the budget if necessary. The annexation discussion we just had, keeping that at the forefront is a priority for us, to ask the council to keep it, right? We just think that makes good policy sense. And again, that's a council led initiative, not us. STR review, just kind of checking in and advising the council that all is well, and we don't see a need for any changes from a ordinance standpoint, that the changes that need to happen can be done administratively. Planning forms, I guess that could go back under support for Trevor, just getting that consent item out there so that they can be implemented. Because if I heard you, Trevor, some of the updates to those forms will ease your communication burden, right? People have to provide these things. You're going to tick these boxes. You have to give those things, then you'll get a more complete packet back. And I have general plan, LCP kind of just grouped together, developing a matrix of the status of the elements. And then what is ready, getting that to the city council, and then keeping that, perhaps a standing agenda item for them, where they are with their progress on that. What I miss?
Maybe the design guideline follows as policies.
Yep.
Was it clear that we wanted to do the lighting issue as a standalone ordinance, or if we wanted to include that in an element?
I think you could start, so if you start implementing the design guidelines as policies, that would cover your new but do you want to do, if you do an ordinance to address after the, existing lighting, then you're introducing more enforcement work.
Well, I'm just asking the question.
Yeah.
I think we've already,
I think it was more the applications, I think.
Okay. that's fine.
Yeah,
We're already saturated.
yeah, I'd love, yeah. There's there's some things I'd love to see applied retrospectively, but I think the easiest lift is, a prospective application. And then, hey, we encourage you to do this, and perhaps if you do it, there will,
Right.
There's grant funding or something, or, like putting a low flow toilet kind of thing. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in a broad topics.
I think we also talked about OWTS enforcement and OPC grant.
We talked about the OWTS enforcement, and I guess my question is, that really ours, or do we just need to tell the council, hey, you need to step up to the plate and enforce this? What we can do is there, but we have no enforcement capacity.
I need to work with Anton to at least maybe get those last letters. I kind of get us maybe, and we can at least provide a status update.
You get Russ to write up.
It would be good to. Jennifer was doing the septic to September septic awareness, water awareness, and we also haven't looked at water use again and water conservation, so that might be something we look at doing at least by September again. We usually do that.
Question for you, Trevor. I feel like over the years mentioned that, enforcement really all we have is kind of nuisance abatement. You don't have anything else, any other tool really as a city. Is that something that would be worth crafting and developing? Would that
It is, I mean,
or have we just never really used, we have that tool, we've just, as a city, never bothered to use it. We just need to get right on it.
Can't you put a lien on this?
eventually. Yeah, and I mean, you can institute like fines, you can do fines.
I think Russ Gans, is he still our attorney?
Yeah,
He should be able to draft a form letter for septic and pre-approve that the process is after we do 1, 2, whatever the process is, 3 notices, the next thing is, hey, Russ, here's the certified, here's the evidence that we've done our due diligence from our standpoint. Now it's yours. The next step is, and the city directs our attorney to send the letter. Because a letter from an attorney might grab somebody's attention a little bit more. Along with, we also talked about, that's right, tying that into the licensing, right?
yeah,
The rentals, STRs, all those things, right? Any kind of, or, any lease use permit. I mean, is there any avenue we can have? I mean, everything we do, we touch, it has to be current, right? For us to approve it.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many outstanding unpermitted septic systems are there in town?
I'd say there's over a dozen that have never had a permit. And there are something like 3 or
I think one property owner is like 1,000 of those.
But then there's also a fair number of people that have been noticed and they just have, it's not that we don't know what's going on, they're just ignoring it. Kind of 2 separate, like they have a functioning system potentially, not the unknown ones, if I'm remembering back.
Yeah, so there are, and there's a couple
Because I
who
know Jennifer had a matrix of kind of the different categories.
come back and they haven't done the repairs that need to be
Right.
done. So there's that part too. Yeah.
And is that, would there be benefit, from code enforcement? Some of this turns into code enforcement, right? Potentially.
Yeah, I mean,
Increasing
eventually
Dan's hours and putting him,
operating septic system, I mean, I think he. That's.
it's a health and safety issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are entities that if your septic system isn't working, they turn off their water. There's no functioning septic system if there's no water.
That's pretty extreme.
It is, and yeah, but
And, we're still working with the county on the new MOU and they do some of the enforcement. So we're sort of in limbo a little bit on that and who does what. In terms of people who actually have systems that aren't.
but you did mention that MOU in your write-up, so is there anything that the planning commission can do about it? I mean, we know it's an issue.
It's in the,
Yeah, no,
that is
it's-
in the county's hands right now. I believe.
Okay. And city staff, city council, city staff issue, not a planning
I
commission.
think, yes, I was just sort of it's something that takes my time, so I was letting you know about it, but it's not gonna come to you.
You're saying all the wrong things tonight. You really, really are. You should be something, that is something that has to be done. We need to have someone do it beside you. That's what we've been talking about all night.
I'm the OWTS administrator then.
Yeah,
Right.
but to see the problem.
yeah, I mean, you don't have time for the planning stuff.
You should,
It is your,
yeah, and I don't mean to bark at you,
Yeah.
I apologize, but
Septic systems was not the thing I really wanted.
right.
We're clearly encouraging you to get creative about getting help.
another suggestion too, and the county does this all the time with backpack, is publish the list of people who do not have permits and put the status of why it's not permitted. If it's a lack of inspection or lack of repair, And put the homeowner,
I like that.
put the property name.
It's a public health issue.
Yeah, and show it to the city council. In a public meeting, maybe we'll get them to,
Show them the parcel map and maybe color code.
yeah,
If you don't want to list the name, like these X parcels are owned by one individual. So one individual is,
well, I mean, but I think that individual needs to be motivated
Sure.
enough to begin working on this,
yeah.
because it'll never happen otherwise.
No, I
Sure, that
agree.
individual cares about public safety, but others.
I'm not, yeah.
It's a great idea. Probably the city attorney would probably say, wait a minute.
Well,
No, it's defamation of character.
well, I mean,
No, it's
the county does this almost every day in their,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the newspapers.
Yeah.
They publish people who are
Not compliant with
not
whatever.
complying with taxes, and
Yeah.
some of those people, owe big chunks of money to the county.
Anything else for priorities, I guess? Talk about or want to.
Yeah, I just caution us personally, maybe, is that this is a long list already.
Sure. Yeah.
And it is difficult, as we all know, to try to stay on top of this stuff when you've got fires that have to be put out on a monthly basis. So I appreciate the list, and I think it's a great list of priorities that make sense, but
Yeah. I mean, there are a few items on here that are simple presentations to the council from us in a public meeting, like, hey, here's our position on annexation. Here's our concerns. It's not our wheelhouse to deal with, but we're telling you as your planning commissioners, you need to deal with this reality. Same with OWHS. And then we can kind of immediately cross some of those off.
true. But it will take due diligence on our part to keep it in front of them.
Right.
And make them recognize that this is an issue. Otherwise, they'll move on to the next problem.
We've got this list out there and if you can put it on one page.
Yeah, I can do a matrix of all of this and then, whether it's submitted monthly to as part of the staff activities report to the city council or quarterly or something. Yeah.
Just separate the enforced enhancement from the annexation discussion by, a few lines of printed paper so that they're not legally adjacent to each other.
Enforcement and annexation.
Correct.
Okay.
We have no role in enforcement, right?
Yeah,
I think
no,
we should do that
yeah.
enforcement. I mean,
But we spend, it's frustrating, right? Because we spend so much time talking about regulations that theoretically could be enforced, and then there's no enforcement of any kind.
yeah, that's.
So it's not
Well,
necessarily a
maybe
planning issue, but it's
maybe
a,
there's a lot of enforcement, but maybe that's a reason that people want to be annexed in the city because there's no.
Usually you hear the reverse around here. People love living in the county because there's less regulation, right?
There's a lot of things in the county that need enforced too that aren't.
That's what I'm saying. The county doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're different.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's the LCP update. And then I think unfortunately, housing is gonna, that's just forced on the city. Cause I got another letter from HCD saying, hey, where's your ADU ordinance?
One of the other entities that has say over it, right? Right?
No.
and it's probably worth mentioning, right, that there's usually around this time of year, there's discussion of which commissioners are assigned to which committees, and there seems to be very few committees at the moment. Like, I'm not on any.
If we have any anymore.
Yeah, right. All like
All the committees that we were assigned to have been disbanded.
And not that anybody here is dying to serve on committees, but it seems like there's some areas for exploration here that might necessitate like an annexation committee.
An annexation committee probably would be good. If the city's going seriously.
a good suggestion to the council.
Yeah, that they form one, right? And perhaps include a planning commissioner,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Richard.
And maybe there's, and maybe there may be a water committee at some point again too.
Yeah, my personal journey with the committees I've been a part of at the city is they end up being a vehicle by which the council sees responsibility. I won't use the word shirk, even though that's the first one that came to mind. And then nothing happens from it. You know, the recommendations get made by citizens that a lot of people have stepped off of the committees that I was on because they felt like they put all this passion and energy into it, and then the council would go in a different direction. Like, you say you want input, you provide an opportunity for input from people, and then you go against that input because of personal beliefs or bias, or, you know, your you know, it's because, you know, we're a general elected kind of council, not a representative one.
Is there a trails committee?
Yeah.
It's gone too. Okay.
I don't think there are any committees anymore, right?
I mean, if there's a drought conditions, then there's supposed to be another water, the water advisory committee that.
Oh, figure the whack again.
Yeah. Specific to dealing
Right.
with a shortage.
Maybe we can just suggest like a working group that they need to, you know, I don't know. Like the council members they have a bunch of committee assignments already, and they, you know, at least committees that they have obligations to be part of that, again, a city our size don't really. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Trinidad just had, for a city of your size, it's just so.
Like the concept of, you know, somehow. It is, we talk to them, but so maybe a suggestion is to kind of put together this priority list, get like draft version of a report to present, then bring it back so we all can kind of go, yeah, we like this, we like the tone, the approach, and launch at a council meeting and put it out there. Does that'd be a good path?
I know that I personally need to see it again. I feel like we've had pretty productive discussion, right, about it. Justin asked and staff that it will work out the way we want it to.
Mr. Rowland, you guys good with that?
Yeah,
that's fine.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think,
Back to you.
I don't, this,
I think the sooner you get it to the council, the better.
exactly. Great, yeah.
Sounds good.
And maybe you just might email it folks when you got it, rather than having it at a meeting, in case we might individually have a conflict.
Okay.
That would-
Yeah. Just don't reply all if we don't have a serial meeting violation of the Brown Act, please. And it comes back individually to Trevor. As a reminder.
I know this is not in our wheelhouse, but I think it's also, maybe we should at least make the suggestion, the website is in horrible shape. And I shouldn't say horrible, but it's outdated. And it really needs to be up to date. And I know that that's something that is not a big priority, of course, but someone from the public trying to figure out who's doing what to who is virtually impossible because all the players have changed. And that makes it
It's
difficult.
to find certain documents.
And it's very difficult to find certain documents, yeah.
That sounds like a good project for AI.
I was gonna say, or a web designer or somebody, right? To,
I mean, not that I have AI,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's.
I make comments. I want in the planning center.
there was some momentum when that was launched, and then yeah, another fire came up, another project came up, and then,
Right, yeah.
I mean, that might be a place where it's worth the city, you know, investing some resources. Maybe we can recommend that. I've got that on here too, that they hire someone to really make that thing user friendly, somebody from the outside designing the architecture of that website that makes sense to them, because if I design it, it's gonna make sense to my brain. If Gabe designs it, it's gonna make sense to his brain. What it needs to be designed is to public, right? And how they need to find and research stuff, and then the city would then need to go, oh, that's how we plug information in, and this is the format. Oh. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Sounds good.
Still nobody else here, nobody else near. Trevor, you have what you need?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Commissioner reports, anything? Anybody? Yeah, I already shared.
Just talk about the April meeting. I won't be here in
Right.
March.
I am also not able to make the March meeting. I'll check my calendar.
So
Like we're not having a March.
I was thinking about rescheduling it for the week.
Yeah, they'll also not be commercial.
Okay, well, that kind of takes care of that.
Is it spring break or something?
Yeah, I'm not hitting that. Take that.
All right, so officially there will be no March meeting of the Trinidad Planning Commission,
No.
Not regular.
Yeah.
not going to quorum, as well as the city planner.
Do we know now?
Yeah, no, March is canceled. We're looking at rescheduling April because I get back 7th, which doesn't leave me much time for a meeting on the 15th.
Got it, okay.
So what's your proposal?
I'm pretty much available anytime the week of the 20th or the 27th. Do you have the calendar for Anton for the room?
Yeah, I think it's pretty open. Do you want to do the?
Do we want to stick with a Wednesday?
The 22nd doesn't really work for me. The day before would work, 21st.
Yeah, and it's nice to break up the city council and planning. I think isn't there usually something the fourth Wednesday? But you said the 22nd doesn't work for you, Aaron?
No, but I mean, I could also miss it. There's, four there.
But we could, I mean, the 29th would be the fifth Wednesday, so we know there's nothing regularly scheduled.
Usually.
I work that day.
It doesn't have to be Wednesday.
Tuesday, 28th is you for us.
Oh, yeah.
The 21st,
21st?
What day of the week is that?
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Sure, that works. So March will be canceled, and then we'll move the April meeting to the 21st, right?
Everything else would have to. Projects.
If we're done.
Yeah, and I think there's nothing else, right? Future agenda items, we've gone through those before. There's nothing new there. No new updates on those, right? Anything we want to pull that's there? I know we've done that in the past. Or is it still just we feel a good parking lot of things we want to get to?
The parking lot.
Okay. Cool. Motion adjourned.
Great.
All right. Thanks, everybody.